Residents of Vanuatu's outer islands are still waiting for aid more than a week after Cyclone Pam tore across the archipelago. Aid agencies and the Vanuatu government have asked for patience as they respond to the disaster, but locals have told Radio New Zealand that the amount of aid getting through is nowhere near enough. New Zealander Richard Henderson is in Port Vila to ask for help for the people on the island of Ambrym. He's been living there for the past 18 months. He says the government's still tightly controlling what supplies go where to make sure that aid is distributed fairly.
Decisions are taking longer to be made than what they probably need to be made. I think most of the information has all been, it's relatively clear what all the information is, and that there is needs in certain places. There's islands that don't have water, there's islands that are pretty much out of food, and those people should have had, in my opinion, aid by now, rather than the aid just piling up in Villa and not being dispersed out.
It seems odd that you can get a situation where they come in for an assessment but don't take any aid with them. And what would be wrong with just giving an initial supply and then moving to a more comprehensive thing later? Yeah,
I would agree with you. Just quickly put out some emergency supplies to some people that obviously need it, and then we can do the rest. I mean, we were sitting there on Ambrym Island watching the planes fly over, and I'm sitting there, trying to tell the locals, well, they're going to drop something soon, just hold on today or tomorrow the next day. And that hasn't, you can quite clearly see from the air that almost all the houses are gone, so the people are going to need shelter at least. So perhaps just drop a few tarpaulins would have been great for those people. But as far as I know, that hasn't happened yet. And I think the other thing that's happening, some of the aid agencies that are coming in, they're not listening too much to some of the locals as well. And there's a little bit of, there does seem to be, from my observation, a little bit of sort of lack of respect for the two parties and their viewpoints.
Now, you've spent considerable time on Ambrym Island. You were saying, I think, a couple of days back that, from your assessment, pretty much food was running out there entirely. I mean, how are these people surviving?
Yeah, well, I left Ambrym Island on Thursday afternoon. The day before that, the local store had sold out of rice. They lost all their crops on the top, and they've lost a large amount of their crops underneath because there's been a volcanic eruption sort of 3 weeks before that, and a whole lot of acid rain has been spoiling all the root crops. Last time I managed to get some communication from them was yesterday, and the quote was, we have 3 days of taro left. So 3 days of taro left, it's not a lot of food.
I know that you have been making some noise and trying to check up on things. What is the response when you say to the officials in charge, this is urgent, things need to get done now, they need food, they need aid?
I think government is worried about, and perhaps this is why they are delaying those things, if it's the government who's doing it, is that we've got to feed 150,000 people for about the next 6 months, okay? Somewhere between 3 and 6 months, there's going to be 150,000 people needing food. So I think from their point of view, they're trying to ration that out because they're not sure how much aid is going to come into the country over the next 3 to 6 months. The Prime Minister, to his credit, he did put out a message on Friday saying, we need food aid, we need food aid. So I think that is perhaps why some of those decisions are being made. We're hearing the answers are, well, just let them eat all their root crops first, let them eat all their food from the gardens first before we give them any food or water. But the reality is that there's some islands there that don't actually have any root crops.
Richard Henderson in Vanuatu.